I've heard you say one of the greatest gifts you received from Maharishi was the gift of minimum effort and maximum results. If this is true, it can't be a concept or a philosophy. It must be absolutely rooted in reality. If that is so, how does it work? And what are the mechanics of that?
Dave, it's a good question, and it has to do with what Archimedes spent a tremendous part of his life discovering and practicing, a mathematician philosopher of ancient Greece, who is credited with having created some of the best descriptions of the principles of mechanics of leverage. How you can take a very giant boulder and just put a fulcrum there, and if you have a long enough pull with a minimum of effort, you can move a massive boulder, which, in other words, if you tried other inefficient ways of moving that, it would require hundreds of people and beasts of burden, or tractors if you're talking about modern things, to move that same inert, heavy, massive thing. And so doing less and accomplishing more. The least amount of effort for the maximum outcome. Now, when we look at our universe, everything that's going on is going on, all the suns and their thermonuclear uh, combustion that's occurring, the trillions upon trillions of galaxies, all of them made up of 100 billion stars, exoplanets floating around all of these stars all over the universe, gravitation, black holes, dark matter, dark energy, the whole thing. And, we don't really see one drop of perspiration. What we see is universe is just in its beingness. Universe is in its beingness. And, the idea of the, which, we're all indoctrinated in, is that success is proportional to the effort you expend. And I'd like to call that out as being an inaccurate statement. Success is not proportional to the effort you expend. Success is proportional to the creative intelligence with which you can embrace a demand. A demand is made on you to cause change to occur. Demands are always to do with change. Change your expectation or change a status quo. Change something. There's the demand. And the success, you can get success by applying massive effort. In other words, doing things very inefficiently. Inefficient application of massive amounts of activity and effort. Or you can find Archimedes' principles of leverage and see, is there a way that we can do less and accomplish more? Is there a way that we could do least and accomplish most? Is there a way in which we can do virtually nothing and accomplish everything, like universe is doing? Universe is doing that all the time. There's a principle in physics called the principle of least action. If I take a tennis ball and throw it, there's an arc that it will follow, and we can determine what that arc is by the elevation that we're at, the gravitation, the wind, and so on and so forth, many, many different factors. But we're going to notice that the ball will follow a curve as it goes through the sky that describes the least amount of action needed in order for it to get to follow its trajectory, its ballistics. We won't see a ball when we throw it, going and doing loops and doing up and down and going down toward the ground, going back up again, and then eventually getting to its goal. The ball will reliably follow the path of least action. The path of least action is a fundamental principle and axiom of Newtonian physics. that, objects always follow the principle of least action, the path of least resistance. When we put our water in a kettle and heat it up to boiling temperature, and the water makes the transition from its liquid state to its gaseous state, and the expansion that naturally occurs as the molecules become excited, we know exactly where the steam is going to come out. It's going to come out through the whistle hole of the kettle. It's not going to start coming out through the seams of the kettle at the bottom. It's not going to come out through those other places, because those places are not the path of least action. They're not the path of least resistance. The steam is going to move in the direction of the least resistance. So these principles have been observed in the physical world. We see the physical world being obedient to this. What we have to do is to adopt that cosmic creative intelligence that's operating already universally, where doing virtually nothing, everything is getting done. And so who is and what is the doer of the universe? And is that doer applying this indoctrinated principle that we have that, success is proportional to the effort you expend? So we have a cosmic doer who is successfully making the whole universe work, and man, was it ever hard work. There's the cosmic doer has a mere impulse of intention, and based on that, everything gets done using the principles of least action. So to what extent have we discovered efficiency? Efficiency has to do with the least amount of effort expended to produce maximum productivity, maximum work, maximum outcome. So success is inversely proportional to the effort you expend. In my model, where we are applying cosmic creative intelligence to any interaction with a demand, then, success is inversely proportional to the effort you expend, not proportional to the effort you expend. So, we need to be super intelligent, creatively intelligent, not working really hard with limited intelligence. When we have to work really hard, then that will represent perhaps limited intelligence. Now, if I watch a guitarist who is an absolute expert guitarist, and I see their fingers flying over the fretboard of their guitar, and their fingers going like this, it may to a novice look like a tremendous amount of effort. But from that perspective of that guitarist, it's frictionless flow. Frictionless flow may appear to be effort to an outside observer, who themselves, without the expertise, without the creative intelligence, without the agility, without the learned mechanisms, if they tried it, it would be really full of effort. But to the one who's become expert, there's frictionless flow. When you hear Michael Jordan talk about being in the zone and how the game is playing itself through him, and he's creating a layup shot, and without even thinking in advance, his consciousness knows exactly how to move in the exact S curves required to drop that basketball into the basket. And he refers to it as being in the zone. When we see a brilliant pianist who describes how the music played itself through them, or a dancer who finds that the dance danced itself through them, or an orator who finds that the most perfect words align and roll with great eloquence without having any aforethought. This is frictionless flow. To someone else who's observing from the outside, it may be looked at as effort. To the one who's experiencing it, it is not without activity. There's activity going on, but there is frictionlessness in that activity. And so when one is asked, well, you know, what was the doing that was involved in that layup shot that Michael Jordan made? Michael's likely to have answered, I didn't do anything. I don't feel like I did anything. There was spontaneous, frictionless flow. So these are some of the concepts that we use, Dave, and I hope that elucidates somewhat your inquiry.